Global Inspirations is pleased to have our guest this week from Madison, Wisconsin. She is a speaker, a trainer on many continents, and a coach at CU Difference. She is Angela Prestil. She's here to share her new career life and share with us what prompted her to change gear and leave Cuna, being an employee for 20 years, and be an independent person that travels all over the world. I would like to remind our viewers to click on the subscribe button to get a notification every time a video is released. This is Jeanette Jordy with Global Inspiration, where you need to be seen, need to be heard, and be an inspiration to the world. Friends, let us welcome to the show Angela Prestil. Good day, Angela.
I love your show. I catch every episode. I have clicked the subscribe button, so I never miss an episode, and it is an honor to be on your show today.
Yes, thank you for agreeing to be part of the Global Inspiration Show. You are known as a speaker, a trainer on many continents, and a coach at CU Difference. Tell us more about yourself, and when I say more, it could be your education, family, pets, or hobbies.
Thank you for that invitation. So my wife and I live in Middleton, Wisconsin. We have a dogter. Her name is Maddie. She is a 3-year-old Zushan, so she's half Shih Tzu, half Bichon. She's a teddy bear. She's a very, very cute dog. And hopefully we will not hear anything from her or no treats for her the rest of the day while we're talking. So I have lived almost my entire life in the state of Wisconsin. Way back in the day, I spent 13 years working for the local utility company, moving around Wisconsin, but I've been in Madison now for over 20 years, and I absolutely love living here.
You are one of the catalysts in building the ACCOSCA Academy, the first training center for credit union on the continent of Africa. Tell us more about this academy.
Thank you for that invitation, because I could speak all day about this, but I understand we only have 30 minutes, so I'm going to keep it brief. You can tell by all of the decorations behind me, I love the continent of Africa. I have been over there 4 times, just returned 2 days ago from the Kingdom of Eswatini. What we are doing is looking at all of the countries within the continent of Africa that have credit unions, which are not-for-profit financial cooperatives. They are a fantastic place to save money and to get loans at much lower rates than you would at a traditional bank. What we have found is that depending on the country in Africa, some have a very robust training plan and training center, but really I believe there are only 3 or 4 countries in Africa that have that kind of support. What we know is that education can really raise the overall impact of a continent. And we know that educating SACCO, which is what they call credit unions, when we educate SACCO employees, SACCO leadership, and the regulators that help them become safe and sound financial institutions, that we will elevate the entire continent of Africa. So the ACCOSCA Academy is set to open on October 15th of this year. And it is a life dream to watch this come to fruition. I've been on the fundraising side of things, where our goal is to raise $1.2 million US to help to build not only the physical training center, but also the technology infrastructure that will help to get the training out to everyone through the continent. So the training center itself is in Nairobi, Kenya. But what I learned this past week is that Africa is large enough that it takes you 10 hours to fly from the tip of South Africa all the way to the northern portion. So imagine a 10-hour flight just to get from one end of the continent to the other. So it doesn't make sense for a credit union or a SACCO to fly someone in a frontline position from South Africa to Nairobi, Kenya for training. So we're making sure the technology is in place so that things like podcasts, just like this, that online training, that webinars will be available to people throughout the continent. So it's the physical space, it's the technology, and then it's the actual curriculum that we're building to make sure that people can choose a career in a SACCO, not just a job. So it's very exciting work. And Jeanette, as we talked before we started the recording, I could talk for 30 minutes just on the ACCOSCA Academy because it is poised to make a difference in the lives of thousands upon thousands of employees at SACCOs and as well as their members, because a well-educated employee means a well-educated member of a SACCO.
Thank you for sharing those facts with us, Angela, and I salute you for this accomplishment, being a catalyst of building this academy. One of the many awards that you have received was in July 2022, July this year, and you, including your family and friends, including me, are proud you to be a recipient of the International Credit Union Development Educator Designation conferred in Glasgow, Scotland. I am curious, what are the criteria to be a recipient of this award? Or tell us more about this award.
That is a great question. So when you become a development educator through the credit union system, you go through a week-long training program where you are working on a project. You are studying the international development issues for primarily your country. So there are 7 different development educator programs around the world. So I went through the development educator program in 2003 here in the United States, and over the years have gone on to mentor a variety of, I believe it's now 8 different teams as they've gone through the development educator program. Well, in February of this year, I had the opportunity to earn my Africa Development Educator designation and my Advanced Africa Development Educator designation. So when you get your development educator designation from your own country, in order to get the international designation, you have to participate in an international DE program and have to complete a project that will benefit that host country. So my project that I worked on was actually helping develop the curriculum for the Advanced Africa Development Educator program. So it was twofold in that I helped develop the Advanced Africa Development Educator curriculum, and I also got to mentor that program for the very first time it was ever offered anywhere in the world, the advanced program. So that was part 1 of the award. And really, you only have to go through DE in your home country, complete an international DE program, and then complete a project around one of the development issues, and then submit a summary of that project to the international committee to get awarded your designation. But, you know, that wasn't enough for me, Jeanette. I had to keep going. And so that's where my work with building the ACCOSCA Academy really blossomed, really took off, because it just seemed like a natural fit to be able to continue to develop curriculum and develop the academy as part of it. And we've already heard about the academy, so I don't have to go into more detail there. But it's very fascinating to go through an international DE program because the same international development issues that we study in every single country has a different application depending on where you live. So some of the international development issues are things like access to technology, access to housing and education, clean drinking water. So if you think about that for the United States, there are places right now in the state of Mississippi, there are people who are boiling their water or drinking bottled water because they don't have access to clean drinking water. So people think about someplace like Africa and think, oh, well, those poor people on the other side of the world don't have access to clean drinking water. Well, I beg your pardon, but we have communities here in the US, in a fully developed country that also have those same development issues. So we are very much a global economy, and we're very much impacted by those international development issues.
You have been with Cuna, or the Credit Union National Association, for 20 years. Share your best accomplishments being with Cuna, and you can give us 2 or 3 accomplishments you had.
So, yes, indeed. So, I did spend 20 years at Credit Union National Association from the year 2000 just up until 2020. February of 2020 was when I left Cuna, right before the pandemic broke out. So, a great time to go out on your own as a speaker, right, Jeanette? Why not? I left in February and the world shut down in March. But the good news was that one of my major accomplishments while I was at Cuna was actually being one of 2 people to start webinars right after 9/11. So if you think about it, we had an education arm at Cuna that was all based on face-to-face training. We had a very, very astute senior leader who had read something about webinars. Now, right now, everyone knows webinars. They're ubiquitous. We spend so much time on Zoom, just like this. But think about the year 2000. Webinars were not in vogue, they weren't a thing. So he had read in a training magazine that webinars were something that were going to come about. So right after 9/11, he pulled myself and a colleague off the road because we were traveling full time, working with credit unions around the United States. And he said, I don't think people are going to travel to training. And a huge part of our budget was people traveling for training. So he said, I want you to start webinars for Cuna, and I want them done before the end of this year. Wow. So we had a matter of November, December, basically October, November, December to start webinars. We had our first webinar up and running by November, and our first webinar out to credit unions throughout the country in December. And now there are hundreds upon hundreds of webinars that are done for Cuna every year. So that was a huge accomplishment. It felt like we were starting a small business because we didn't know what we were doing. And turns out we could have written a book about our accomplishments because it was something that everyone around the country and everyone around the world was trying to do. So who knew that we were groundbreakers at that time? So that was something that I was very, very happy to have accomplished. Then I went on to have many, many other accomplishments. I think one of the things that I was most proud of while I was there was working with a program called Cuna Management School. That is a 3-year program that professionals come to Madison for 2 weeks at a time. They stay in the dorms at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and they have instructors that come from all over the country, teaching them how to be the next leaders of credit unions throughout the country. And I've gone on to see many of the people that I led through that program, through that 3-year program, they have gone on to become CEOs at credit unions and to take other leadership positions at credit unions. And they have become the generation's next credit union leaders. So that was a very, very rewarding program to watch those leaders build and grow over the course of their 3 years at Cuna Management School. So those are just 2 of the things that in my 20 years, I would say were very exciting accomplishments.
Thank you very much, Angela. That so far is a big accomplishment for a woman like you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You left Cuna in February of 2020 and worked as a special assistant to CEO for African American Credit Union Coalition. What are the best projects so far that you are involved with?
That was such a leap of faith that Renee Sadie-White, the CEO of AACUC, took by bringing me on board right after I left Cuna. My first assignment with them was my most impactful. We together produced the first online virtual conference for AACUC, and it was an honor to be able to work with African American leaders in the credit union industry throughout the country. And I basically produced webinars on a national scale with hundreds upon hundreds. We actually had 1,000+ people that registered for the virtual conference. It was the first of its kind in the credit union industry. I guess I have a history of doing things for the first time with people. I didn't even realize that until I just said it. But it was such an honor to get to work with the African American leaders and work with people that were at the National Credit Union Administration, NCUA, and produce webinars for them as well. And I later went on to work with the company that ran the whole platform for the virtual conference. It's called AdvancedNet Labs, and they work with NGOs around the country to be able to run virtual conferences for them as well. So helped with the virtual conferences for Inclusive, which is another credit union organization that deals with credit unions that are low income designated credit unions throughout the country. So yeah, that was a fantastic, fantastic chapter in my life. And I look to Renee Sadie-White as someone who is, she is such an incredible leader. What she will do for individuals is she will reach down, she will pull you up, she will dust you off, adjust your crown, and then she'll put you to work and say, okay, now that you have stable footing, let's turn around and let's look at who else can we pull up. And so she constantly elevates person after person to bring them into the forefront and help them with their careers and their future within the credit union movement. So kudos to Renee as well. She'd be a great person to have on the podcast.
Another kudos to you, Angela. Thank you very much for doing that on behalf of our community as a woman. You are a certified draw future consultant, which is, I consider, to be one of your accomplishments again. What is the industry that's on the top of your list requesting for assistance? Or tell us more about this consultancy.
So the Draw Your Future process is fantastic and fascinating. And it's proven that when you draw a picture along with a goal, you are 42% more likely to achieve that goal than if you just write it down all by itself. So what we do, Jeanette, is we take a look at what's going well for you and what's challenging currently. We write down a word or two, and then we draw pictures around that. And then we look at a year from now, or 3 years from now, or 5 years from now. What do you want your dream state to be? What is your ultimate goal? And again, we draw pictures around where you want to be. And I take you through a visualization process, as it were, to really look at where is that future going for you. And then we come up with 3 bold steps to help you get from where you currently are to where you want to be. And then we create an action plan around it. And what I see as the people who are most interested in this process are people who are in the strategic planning process. I'm actually working with a credit union coming up in a couple of weeks where we're doing Draw Your Future instead of a traditional strategic planning process. So we'll still look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the organization like a traditional SWOT process where you look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we still look at strengths and weaknesses, but we draw them instead of just writing them down. And then we look at what those opportunities are and we draw them. So I work almost exclusively with credit unions, but I work with just about anyone. And this is just as powerful one-on-one as it is if I do it with an entire group. So next week, I'm actually going to a credit union in central Wisconsin in La Crosse, and we're doing Draw Your Future there. So I take all my pens, all my writing supplies, I take them on the road with me, and we draw your future wherever people want me. In addition, if I could turn my camera, I would show you that there is a wall 4 feet by 8 feet that I have a giant sheet of paper, and it's all ready for me to draw futures for anyone who needs it. I have a special camera that I use so that people can draw along with me. So it has just been a gift to be able to have been certified in this process and to get people to see where they're going and to have that dream. And what I recommend is when you draw your own map in front of you, you post that map in a place where you can see it, but no one else. And I have had so many people come back to me, Jeanette, to say, I keep that map on my wall, and it is surprising to me how many times my wishes come true and my dreams come true because I've got that in front of me all the time, and I drew my future.
Yeah.
So it's a really fun process too.
It applies to me, draw your future, because I usually have it mentally. I write it, but I lost the paper and it's just all over the place. Maybe draw your future is for me. You are a successful career woman, a speaker, a trainer, and a coach. What are your thoughts or words of inspiration you want to share with our viewers based on your experiences in life?
It's such a touching question. And I know you end each conversation that way. I will tell you that there's a quote that was by Anonymous, and Anonymous is always a woman. We know that, right? That Anonymous is always a woman. And the quote is, you can't change the direction of the wind, but you can adjust your sails. And that applies to so many of us in life, and it applied to me. When I left Cuna, it was a very difficult time. It was right at the start of COVID. It was not something that was expected. And I had to adjust my sails. The wind was hitting me, the wind was whipping at me hard, and I had to adjust my sails. And it's not easy. It's not easy to adapt to change, but it was certainly worth it. And I consider that I am living my absolute best life right now, traveling to the continent of Africa, traveling to Scotland, going all over the world, speaking for people that I never in a million years thought that I would have been able to meet. So it's just been very, very rewarding to keep in mind that we all have to be flexible in our life's journey. And it may not go according to what we plan, but draw a new picture and a new future will appear for you.
That is also one of my mantra, Angela, that if the wind changes, you have to think of another thing, because the change of the wind is beyond our control. So you have to change on how you gear your boat or your ship. And I learned a lot from you today, Angela, and you have a very interesting life. I appreciate you gracing Global Inspiration interview today. More power to you, girl. This is Jeanette Jordy with Global Inspiration, where you need to be seen, need to be heard, and be an inspiration to the world.